The scream rips across the shoreline like a siren. "Help! He's got my boy! He's got my boy!" It's a warm June night at Disney's Grand Floridian. Fireworks haze the sky. The lagoon glows black as glass. Families pause, confused, until the water erupts. A shape, low, armored, prehistoric, whips sideways and vanishes, dragging a 2-year-old into the dark. His father dives, hands clawing at nothing, splashes, shouts, a lifeguard sprinting barefoot through sand too soft to grip. The shoreline becomes a blur of phone flashlights and terror. Then, silence. No ripples, no bubbles. Just the aftershock of what everyone heard. A single splash, a single gulp, and a child's name shouted into a lagoon that does not answer. Magic Kingdom music drifts across the water. Somewhere beneath it, the night has already decided. The Grand Floridian was glowing that night. Its white Victorian turrets shimmered under the fireworks from the Magic Kingdom. Families strolled the pathways, clutching ice cream cones and souvenir cups, the air humming with that Disney promise. Nothing bad can happen here. On the Seven Seas Lagoon beach, the Graves family from Nebraska settled in to watch the fireworks show. The parents, Matt and Melissa, had lain between them, 2 years old, blonde hair catching the light, digging his tiny toes into the sand. The lagoon lapped gently at the shore, shallow, inviting. Signs were posted, no swimming. But they warned nothing of what lurked beneath. No mention of alligators, no hint that the dark water was not empty. Lane splashed in the shallows, bending to scoop handfuls of wet sand into his little plastic bucket. Matt stood just a few feet away, his eyes flicking between his son and the glowing sky. The warm Florida air was still, the kind of calm that makes you forget how quickly it can shatter. They didn't hear it. They didn't see it. But just beyond the drop-off, 2 amber eyes had locked on Lane, and they were moving closer. The lagoon's surface was black glass under the fireworks, rippling only where Lane's tiny hands disturbed it. Just beyond that innocent splash zone, the water bulged. Quiet, calculated. In the predator's mind, there was no confusion, no hesitation. Instinct ruled. A flash of tail, a surge of muscle, and the American alligator exploded from the shallows with a speed that shattered the stillness. Matt barely had time to register the movement. A blur of scaled hide, a violent churn of water, before the jaws closed around his son. The sound wasn't a roar. It was a sickening crack. The kind that bypasses the ears and drives straight into the gut. Lane was yanked off his feet so fast that the bucket and shovel he'd been holding landed several feet away, the water swallowing them. The gator's head swung, dragging the boy toward deeper water in a single, horrifying arc. Matt lunged, his hands gripping his son's waist, pulling with every ounce of strength. But gator muscle was built for this. Burst power, death rolls, the unbreakable clamp of 3,000 pounds of bite force. The water around them boiled with violence. And then, with a final wrench, both predator and child vanished into the black. The shock lasted less than a heartbeat. Matt Graves was already in the water, thrashing forward into the darkness where his son had disappeared. The lagoon felt bottomless, the silt sucking at his legs as if trying to keep him from reaching Lane. He could still see faint ripples ahead, signs of movement, signs that his boy was there. He dove, arms sweeping through the murk, fingers clawing at nothing but water. The gator was invisible now, vanished into its element, its massive body twisting with practiced precision just beyond sight. "Lane!" His voice tore through the night, a desperate roar swallowed by the lagoon. He dove again, lungs burning, trying to grab onto anything, skin, hair, fabric, but the creature was already moving deeper, faster. Each second felt like an hour. The fireworks continued to burst overhead in a grotesque contrast, casting flashes of red and gold over the water. Then came the silence. No splashes, no ripples, just the heavy, suffocating realization pressing into Matt's chest. The gator wasn't coming back up, not with its prey alive. But Matt refused to stop. Even as the cold bit into him, he kept diving into the black, chasing a son who was already slipping beyond reach. The chaos around the shoreline collapsed into a strange, suffocating quiet. The splashing had stopped, the gator was gone, and so was Lane. Matt staggered out of the water, gasping for air, eyes scanning every inch of the black surface. He kept telling himself he'd see a small head pop up, hear a tiny voice calling "Daddy." But the lagoon gave him nothing. only the slow, mocking lap of water against the sand. Melissa clutched at her husband's arms, her voice breaking into jagged sobs. "Where is he? Where's my baby?" A few feet away, another guest stood frozen, their phone limp in their hand. A child nearby whispered to their mother, "What happened to the boy?" But no one answered. The air was thick with dread. That perfect Disney summer night had shifted into something alien. Dangerous. Somewhere beneath that still water, the predator lingered. Silent. Patient. Holding on to what it had taken. Matt's chest heaved. His eyes locked on the dark lagoon. His muscles screamed from the fight, but his mind was already clawing for another way, another chance to get his son back. The nightmare wasn't over. It had just gone quiet. Too quiet. The moment the horror clicked into focus, the scene detonated into motion. Guests were screaming. Cast members were shouting into radios. Someone yelled, "Call 911, now!" Matt was back in the water, chest deep, diving under, coming up gasping, then plunging down again. He didn't care about the gator anymore. If it came back, it could take him too. All that mattered was finding Lane. Melissa was on her knees in the sand, her hands trembling so violently she could barely press her phone's screen. Her call to emergency services came out in sobbing fragments. "My son. The water. An alligator. Please." A lifeguard sprinted from the nearby pool, scanning the lagoon with a flashlight. The narrow beam danced across the black ripples, revealing nothing but the hollow surface. The gator had vanished into the murk, and so had Lane. Guests huddled back, torn between helping and the primal fear that whatever was in there could strike again. Some clutched their children close, others simply stared, pale and silent, as the reality sank in. This wasn't an accident. This was a hunt. In those first frantic minutes, hope still clung to the air, but it was slipping away fast. The sun had fully dropped now, and the Seven Seas Lagoon had become an endless sheet of black glass. The gentle waves that had lapped so innocently against the beach minutes earlier now felt sinister, concealing something cold-blooded, patient, and ancient beneath the surface. Emergency lights strobed red against the water as the first sheriff's deputies arrived, their radios crackling with half-heard urgency. "Child in the water. Gator attack. Unknown location." Rescue boats pushed out into the dark, their motors growling low. Spotlights swept in wide arcs, revealing only fragments. A floating palm frond, the faint glint of an eye that vanished the instant the beam hit it. Somewhere out there, the predator was still lurking. On shore, Disney staff began ushering guests back, building a cordon to keep them away from the shoreline. But the Graves family stayed. Matt's shorts clung heavy with lagoon water, his face pale, his arms streaked with scratches from where the gator's tail had whipped him. He refused to move more than a few feet from where Lane had been pulled under. The air hung thick, humid, and unmoving. Each passing minute made the odds grimmer. Lane was out there, but so was the alligator, and neither had surfaced. The lagoon had turned into a crime scene. Deputies and Florida fish and wildlife officers fanned out along the waterline, armed with poles, harpoons, and rifles. The plan was grim: find the gator, kill it, and recover the boy. Alive, if there was still a chance. The alligator could be anywhere. In water this dark, even a 12-foot predator could vanish within inches. Search boats moved in slow, calculated sweeps, their spotlights slicing through the night like blades. Every few seconds, a light would catch something, a ripple too deliberate, a shape just under the surface, and adrenaline would spike, only for it to dissolve into nothing. Traps were deployed, baited with raw chicken, the scent meant to lure the reptile into a fatal mistake. Officers and waiters stepped into the shallows, their boots sinking into soft silt, the black water rising to their hips. Every step was blind faith. They knew the gator could be directly beneath them. On shore, the Graves family remained frozen in place, faces lit by the harsh glare of emergency lights. Silence hung heavy except for the hiss of radios and the distant hum of resort music still playing somewhere, oblivious to the horror. The hunt was on, and the clock was merciless. The search entered its most dangerous phase. Divers were ordered into the black, predator-filled water. These men knew the risk. American alligators don't just lurk, they ambush. And in water like this, there would be no warning. The lagoon swallowed them almost instantly. Their headlamps cast narrow tunnels of light through the murk, revealing only a haze of drifting silt and flashes of pale fish darting away. Every brush of weeds against their arms triggered a jolt of adrenaline. Somewhere in that darkness, a powerful jaw capable of crushing bone in seconds could be waiting. Above the surface, spotters scanned for movement, ripples, a snout, a shadow too large to be a fish. One officer's voice cracked over the radio. "We've got eyes in the west corner." Every heart stopped. Search boats closed in, their engines throttled low to avoid spooking whatever was there. But when the light hit, it wasn't Lane. It wasn't even the gator, just a floating branch, teasing the men who knew time was running out. Still, they pushed deeper into the water, every minute carrying the unspoken truth. If Lane was out there, his small body was no match for what lurked below. The rescue was shifting toward recovery. It was just past midday when the radios finally erupted with the words everyone had both prayed for and dreaded. "We've got him." A diver surfaced slowly, his body language heavy. In his arms, wrapped carefully in a white sheet, was the small, still form of Lane Graves. The lagoon was silent, no sound but the lapping of water against the rescue boat. Even the birds seemed to have gone quiet, as if nature itself understood the gravity of what had just been found. Lane had been located near the bottom, not far from where the attack happened, hidden in a shallow drop-off where the murky water concealed everything beneath. It was the very spot the gator had dragged him toward in the frantic seconds after the snatch. A predator's natural instinct to stash prey underwater until it was safe to feed. Rescuers handled the child with reverence, their voices hushed. One officer removed his cap, his eyes glistening. They had found him intact, but the marks left behind told a chilling story, one of force, speed, and overwhelming power. The mission was over, but the lagoon still felt like an open wound. The recovery had brought answers, but it had also crystallized the horror of that night. When Matt and Melissa Graves were told their son had been found, it wasn't relief that washed over them. It was the crushing weight of reality. For nearly 16 hours, they had clung to a shred of hope that Lane might somehow be alive. Now, that hope was gone. They were led to a quiet, private room away from the press, away from the crowd still enjoying their vacations just a few hundred yards away. The white sheet lay across a small body on a stretcher. The room seemed frozen in time, every movement deliberate, every breath audible. Melissa fell to her knees the moment she saw him, her sobs echoing off the walls. Matt, stoic through the night, collapsed too, his hands trembling as he brushed back Lane's hair. The reality was unbearable. His little boy's face was still, his eyes closed forever. No parent is meant to see their child like this, still in the clothes he'd worn that night, his small shoes still damp. The only sound was Melissa whispering, "I'm so sorry, baby. I'm so sorry." In that moment, the world outside ceased to exist. The lights of the happiest place on earth might have still shone, but for the Graves family, everything had gone dark. Weeks after Lane's death, the manicured lawns of the Grand Floridian bore a new and haunting addition. A small lighthouse statue, pristine white, standing at the edge of the lagoon. Disney called it a tribute. For Matt and Melissa Graves, it was both a symbol of their son's light and a reminder of the darkness that had taken him. The memorial was quiet, unassuming. Tourists passed it every day, some stopping to read the plaque, others hurrying past, unwilling to linger on tragedy in the middle of their holiday. But for those who knew, that lighthouse didn't just mark a spot. It marked the moment innocence was lost on Disney property. Disney had moved swiftly after the attack, erecting fences, posting "no swimming" and "beware of alligators" signs, and reshaping the shoreline. It was a silent admission that what happened to Lane could have been prevented. On dedication day, the Graves family stood together, holding each other upright as the Florida sun beat down. They didn't speak much. There were no words that could bridge the chasm left behind. The lighthouse gleamed in the daylight, its shadow stretching over the very place where a little boy had been taken. And everyone present knew this memorial should never have needed to exist.